instant access to an ever-increasing amount of information 24 hours a day. We're more closely in touch with the events that make the news around the world than any other people in history. The events of the day bombard us via television, radio, newspapers, and magazines. They occupy our attention for a short while until something new grabs the headlines. Yes, we're swamped with news and information, but often it's difficult to see the whole picture. How can we really know what's important rather than just what's exciting and dramatic? How can we know what will have lasting impact on the future? As never before, we need to understand what's going on in the world. Not just what's happening, but why it's happening and what it means. Even the most thorough and conscientious reporting is not enough if it ignores one vital source of understanding. This program, now beginning its 57th year of broadcasting, has not ignored that source. The World Tomorrow program and our monthly publication, The Plain Truth Magazine, have provided a unique perspective of world conditions since the days of the Great Depression. That vital source has allowed us to accurately forecast many of the major developments of our time, years, even decades, in advance of their actual fulfillment. As our regular viewers know, the source I'm speaking of is this book, the Bible. The Bible is not only a handbook for successful living, it's also a valuable guidebook for viewing world events in proper perspective. The important trends and events you'll be reading and hearing about during the next few decades were prophesied and written down in the Bible thousands of years ago. Between a quarter and a third of the Bible is prophecy, and most of these prophecies are yet to be fulfilled. Now, of course, the Bible doesn't foretell incidental disasters and local conflicts, but it does alert us to major trends, trends that are even now beginning to take shape. Trends that will change the course of human history. On this program, we're guided by the sure word of prophecy. It helps put the news into perspective, to sift the crucial from the non-essential. Joining me this week to discuss the coming decade will be three men whose faces are familiar to many of you, my colleagues on the World Tomorrow telecast. We'll be looking at three major areas of concern that will be of crucial importance in the 90s. These areas are the geopolitical scene, the family, and the environment. What happens in these areas will not only affect how we view the world, but also the way we live. We'll begin with David Hume, who recently taped this report in Bonn, West Germany.
We're looking across the Rhine River at the site of the West German Bundestag. It houses the elected officials of the West German Parliament. The Bundestag has long been a symbol of post-World War II West German democracy. It's located here in Bonn. For over 4 decades, Germany and Europe have been split into two competing camps. Many of us can't remember a time when this wasn't the case. But today, nearly half a century after the end of the Second World War, the winds of change are blowing on the European geopolitical landscape, and they're rapidly sweeping away the last remnants of the Cold War period.
David, when you were in Europe, did you get a sense of how quickly events are moving?
Things are moving very rapidly. There's a tremendous sense of energy in the air, and really there's been nothing quite like it in modern history. Europeans in the East and the West are hearing more and more about a common European homeland. It's an idea that's being reinforced by Europe's growing unity. By 1992, we'll see a continent without borders or frontiers. And daily, it seems, there's increasing anticipation that the post-World War II division of Europe will end. The polarizing attitudes of the Cold War are now becoming a thing of the past. You'll recall that back in 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan visited the Berlin Wall, challenging Mikhail Gorbachev to open this gate and tear down this wall. How quickly it's happened. Daily, it seems, Moscow is upgrading its ties with Western Europe. The remarkable new policies of Soviet leader Gorbachev are fracturing long-held Western perceptions. He wants his country to be seen as a responsible, non-threatening, cooperative neighbor. Mr. Gorbachev has personally cultivated the image of a peacemaker. And many in the West, of course, feel he's sincere. The Soviets are developing closer ties with the increasingly powerful European community. The Kremlin's strategy is to tap the economic might on their western flank and close the Soviet Union's serious industrial and technological gap. Of special interest to Moscow, of course, is Europe's foremost economic powerhouse, West Germany. The on-again, off-again relationship between Germany and Russia appears to be on-again. Tensions are rapidly de-escalating. The German eagle and the Russian bear are once again cozying up to each other. But it's a love-hate relationship that's had profound consequences for Europe and the world. So we can expect some startling surprises in the next few years in East-West relations. What we're witnessing today is nothing less than the formation of a new European order. Exactly what sort of arrangement will eventually emerge is not yet clear. But one thing is certain, the political restructuring of Europe will be the big news of the 1990s, and it will have far-reaching effects, not only here in Europe, but around the globe. Many outside Europe have failed to grasp the importance of what's unfolding inside the European community. By the end of 1992, the EC should have no more trade barriers among its member nations. When they make the deadline, much of Western Europe will emerge as a single unified market of 320 million people, bigger in world trade than the United States and Japan combined. And 1992 will be just the beginning. Already, plans are on the drawing boards for a common currency, managed by a European central bank. This Belgian coin, a 5 écu piece, écu stands for European Currency Unit, is a prototype of the money that may be in common use throughout much of Europe in the not-too-distant future. Beyond monetary union, European planners are working toward a political federation. They could create a single European nation-state, a kind of United States of Europe. And the inclusion of some East European countries is not impossible, especially as Moscow loosens its grip on its long-time satellites. So there are going to be some increasingly interesting developments in Europe. The Europe we've known for the past 4 decades may in fact soon disappear.
It's obvious Europe's going to continue to be a very dynamic situation. But what about the Middle East? What can we expect there?
Well, the Middle East is also going to continue to be a source of instability and unrest in the world. Because of that, we can expect future events there to have major impact on the rest of the world. The Middle East is a powder keg of tension and violence. It's been called the world's most dangerous hotspot, the most likely flashpoint for World War III. The continuing arms race in the Mideast is fast outpacing the search for peace. Weapons continue to pour in, so the potential for destruction is being raised to unparalleled new heights. Of deep concern is the perplexing situation between the Israelis and Palestinian Arabs on the volatile West Bank and Gaza Strip. The crisis is causing Israelis to look inward. They are being forced to reconsider the nation's borders and its national identity. Many Israelis believe there's simply no room for another country in their land. Palestinians, on the other hand, say there'll never be real peace until they have sovereign territory where they can raise their flag. So it seems we're faced with the prospect of a continuing deadlock. And geopolitical analysts are disturbed because what happens in the strategic Mideast could have a serious impact on the entire world, as the recent past has shown. As you know, we're currently working on an upcoming program on this very subject.
Thank you, David. We'll certainly be looking forward to that report. Europe and the Middle East have been major concerns of the World Tomorrow program since its inception. The reason we take an interest in those areas is that the Bible indicates that these trends will impact the world scene. Strange as it may seem, the future of Europe and the Middle East has been recorded in advance. The Bible pictures the rise and fall of empires from ancient times to the present. The Bible holds the key to understanding as it spells out a global political and economic system that will dominate the world. European unification could be a part of that system. Even now, the outlines of a European superpower are taking shape, as David Hume explained. The Bible also shows that the problems confronting the Middle East will trigger a sequence of events so staggering as to shake the very foundations of civilization. Yet few have understood the full implications of what's happening there. That's why we publish this magazine. Each month, readers of The Plain Truth, a magazine of understanding, find important articles explaining the meaning of events in Europe, in the Middle East, and elsewhere. That's because The Plain Truth is a news magazine that relates the events of our modern world to the prophecies of the Bible. It's a magazine you can't do without, and it's absolutely free of charge. You can renew your subscription for as long as you want. Take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
World events can seem like a jigsaw puzzle, disconnected pieces of news that lack clear meaning on their own. A framework is available that ties these events together, that makes it possible to know what their effect will be on your future. The Plain Truth uses that framework, the framework of Bible prophecy, to help you better understand today's and tomorrow's news. For a free subscription to The Plain Truth, please telephone 008-074 222. That's 008-074 222. Operators are waiting for your call. The Plain Truth fills you in on America's future, Europe's rebirth, the Soviet Union's restructuring, and the other important events that will shape the 1990s. Closer to home, The Plain Truth also provides the biblical perspective on our environment, our families, and ourselves. When major events explode on the world scene and you lose your sense of direction, you need The Plain Truth. So telephone 008-074 222 for your free subscription to The Plain Truth. That's 008-074 222. The Plain Truth, a magazine of understanding.
In our survey of what's ahead for the 90s, we feel the subject of the family will be another major concern in the years just ahead. And for that report, we go to Ronald Kelly.
The future of any nation is in the hands of its families. The family has been called by many experts the building block of society, its basic source of strength. When family bonds are strong, everyone benefits, the individuals, the community, and the nation. But history shows that when families begin to disintegrate, to fail on a wide scale, the results can be catastrophic. In recent decades, we've seen a steady erosion of the traditional family. The results? Fractured relationships, broken homes, children of divorce, runaways, child abuse. In one combination or another, these tragedies have been an all too painful reality for hundreds of thousands of families. But now, as we enter the 90s, some experts are seeing hopeful signs of a resurgence of the family, a strengthening of family ties and traditional values. But only time will tell if that revival will continue.
You seem to be suggesting with that report, Ron, that the traditional family is beginning to stage a comeback.
That's what some authorities are saying, Dave. From the beginning of this century to about 1980, there was a steady increase in family breakdown. But in 1981, the divorce rate seemed to have reached its peak. Earlier in this century, family breakup was rare. It was a time when divorce carried with it a major social stigma. In 1900, there were fewer than 50,000 divorces in the entire United States. Then gradually, divorce became more acceptable. After World War I, statistics indicated that nearly 1/4 of marriages would end in divorce. By 1920, there were 175,000 divorces a year. In the aftermath of World War II, nearly 1/3 of marriages were ending in divorce. By the early 1950s, nearly 400,000 couples divorced each year. By the 1980s, the U.S. Census Bureau was reporting that 1/2 of recent marriages would end in divorce, meaning more than 1 million divorces a year. And those are just American statistics. Other Western nations have followed a similar pattern. However, almost unnoticed at first, the escalating graph of family breakdown apparently reached its peak in the early 1980s. Obviously, the situation is still not good, with about 50% of recent marriages breaking up. But at least the rapid rate of increase has leveled off. Some authorities feel there is little indication of the current trends diminishing. Yet others see more attention being given to the family than ever before in recent memory. So they're hopeful that the result will be a sustained trend toward revival and renewal of strong family life. Some of the media has begun to focus increasingly on positive aspects of family life. Articles about restoring traditional family values, developing family ties, effective child rearing, and marital happiness are appearing with increasing frequency in a wide range of publications. New books on the family are commanding the attention of many readers. They are finding that working to create a happy family life is worth the effort, that solving problems is better than letting them overcome us. So there are some encouraging signs. In the classic sense of the word, we're at a crossroads. For decades, the state of the family steadily declined in the Western world. Now, a most important decade lies ahead. Will family failure again escalate as a new generation matures, or will we continue the comeback we've begun to see? On this program, we look to the Bible as our source of guidance on these topics of marriage and the family. The Apostle Paul wrote this for our time. But know this, in the last days perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control. That's certainly the general tendency in this society, but it's not an inescapable tendency. We have a choice. Through his prophet Malachi, God prophesied of family divisions at the end of this age. He also stressed the pressing need for a revival of family bonds. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. So we see how serious it is. The World Tomorrow program is dedicated to the preservation and growth of the family. As in past years, we're scheduling a number of programs to help motivate and inspire successful family life. We salute those who are making the effort, and we hope those efforts will inspire many others to work for family success in the crucial decade ahead. The course of the future is being set now. If society is to survive, the family must continue to be a major concern. Further disintegration could spell disaster. The trends that emerge in the decade of the 90s could well make or break Western civilization. It's quite a challenge for all of us.
Thanks for that report, Ron. Now we move to another important issue of the 90s. It's been suggested that the environment may be as big an issue in the 90s as nuclear disarmament was in the 70s and 80s. Richard Ames filed this report from Los Angeles.
Scientists are voicing increasing concern about the health of planet Earth. It's no secret that man is interfering radically in his environment, polluting and misusing its life-sustaining air, land, and water resources. The decade of the 90s may show us just how vulnerable we are to the pollution cycles we set in motion. For many world leaders, the environment is the #1 item on their global agenda for the coming decade. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher calls man's destruction of the environment one of the greatest challenges which life on Earth has yet faced. The developing crisis is virtually certain to affect the quality of life for each and every one of us.
We can see from your report, Dick, that this is obviously a big subject. What area of the environmental crisis should we be concerned about the most?
Well, Dave, the depletion of our tropical rainforests has got to be one of our major concerns. Ecologists warn that Earth's tropical forests are being destroyed at an accelerating rate. Tropical forests, which once covered 10% of the Earth's land surface, have been reduced by 1/3. Of the remaining forests, 2% are destroyed or seriously degraded each year. Last year alone, Amazonian rainforests the size of England, Wales, and Scotland combined were destroyed forever. Millions who have traditionally earned their livings directly from the forest are already being adversely affected by this unchecked destruction. And what's more, tropical forests are crucial to the stability of the world's climate and the maintenance of oxygen and fresh water supplies. The loss of these forests will contribute to a radical disruption of the Earth's climate. It's truly an environmental time bomb. The serious consequences of deforestation have not yet been appreciated by the average man on the street. But there are other troubling aspects of the environmental crisis that do hit closer to home, such as what to do with our trash and solid waste. Throughout the industrialized West, our trash is literally threatening to bury us. Many cities are running out of places to dump their garbage. Recycling as a solution simply has not been adopted as a serious priority in many areas. In the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency recently predicted that most landfills will be completely filled within 10 years. Urban engineers fear that the decade of the 90s may be the time when the effects of our disposable society will catch up with us. They foresee potentially disastrous consequences to our health as well as to our environment. This is the Lopez Canyon landfill. 15 years ago, Lopez was a virgin canyon. Today it contains over 10 million tons of trash and garbage. The ever-expanding mound of dirt-covered trash looms nearly an incredible 1,800 feet above sea level. Lopez stands as a symbol of the burgeoning trash crisis, a crisis by no means limited to Los Angeles. Cities across the United States and the industrialized Western world are running out of space to dispose of their trash. City planners say it is impossible to continue our present rates of consumption and waste without risking a major environmental crisis. The delicate balance of nature in and around our sprawling urban centers has already been severely upset. Environmentalists are urging that each of us becomes a committee of one to declare war on waste through recycling and other conservation efforts. If we fail, the effects of our continued binge of solid waste production will be devastating. It should be obvious to us that our responsibility should be to maintain a clean and healthful environment. The Bible tells us that God created the earth and commanded mankind to tend and keep it. To neglect this responsibility, to pollute and destroy the environment, is to court ecological disaster. Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands reflected the fears of many of us when she observed, "The earth is slowly dying, and the inconceivable, the end of life itself, is actually becoming conceivable." U.S. Senator Albert Gore echoed the same sentiment when he declared, "Just as the world has been living with the possibility of man-made disaster in the form of nuclear war, so it now lives with the growing threat of man-made disaster in the form of catastrophic environmental failure." There's no question that environmental pollution will be one of the big issues of the 1990s. It's a serious problem that simply won't go away. We're going to have to deal with it.
It's clear we have some real problems in that area. We'll be looking forward to your program on that subject in the near future. Thanks, Dick, for that report. We need to be alert to the trends that are shaping the news. When you understand how the Bible relates to today's news, you'll begin to grasp how the events of the 90s will propel us ever closer to the fulfillment of the good news this program has been proclaiming for nearly 6 decades. That good news is the final intervention of God Himself in human affairs. Then this weary world will be set right. We must be aware of the times we live in, and we must be prepared for what's ahead. Now, if you found today's program interesting and stimulating, you'll also find this free magazine, The Plain Truth, worth your while. The Plain Truth is a magazine of understanding. This magazine is about today's world and the prospects for a better world tomorrow. It'll show you how to make the most out of life and how to prepare for what's ahead. It also gives understanding and meaning behind today's world news in the light of Bible prophecy. As a viewer of the World Tomorrow telecast, you can receive this magazine absolutely free of charge for as long as you like. There's no obligation whatsoever, and no one will call on you. Take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
As our environment teeters on the edge, while our families try to cope with changing times, the Plain Truth will be there with information you'll need. As the Mideast simmers toward a boiling point, while Europe undergoes revolutionary change, the Plain Truth will tell you why and where it's all leading. For a free subscription to the Plain Truth, please telephone 008-074-222. Operators are waiting for your call. The Plain Truth looks at the issues that will affect your life in the 90s from a unique perspective, that of the Bible. It's vital information you won't find anywhere else. And The Plain Truth won't cost you anything. Please telephone 008 074 222. If you don't get through right away, jot the number down and call us back in 10 or 15 minutes. If you'd like to write, then send your request to The World Tomorrow, GPO Box 345, Sydney, New South Wales 2001. That's The World Tomorrow, GPO Box 345, Sydney, New South Wales 2001. Find out what the Bible says about the important issues of the 90s. It's all in The Plain Truth.
Now here's a preview of what's coming up next week on The World Tomorrow. Babylon. It brings to mind images of a legendary tower, wondrous hanging gardens, strange beasts, a great king turned mad, and the handwriting on the wall. What do these things have to do with our future? Join us next week on The World Tomorrow for Babylon in History and Prophecy. We hope to see you again at this same time. Thanks for being with us. I'm David Albert for The World Tomorrow.
The preceding program and all literature were produced and sponsored by the Worldwide Church of God.